seeking salvation through devotion, through the worship of different types of gods and goddesses, attaining salvation through asceticism and mysticism. We talked about the Vaira Shiva tradition yesterday. We also talked about the Kannada language, that is vachanas have been written, and they throw a very important light on the growth of the two new traditions in India at that time, and that were related to very philosophical traditions, very philosophical ideas that even today persist with us. Hello students, we are discussing the Bhakti and the Sufi traditions. We have come through the different aspects which were taught by the different people, by the different saints. We have talked about Deccan, we have talked about the north, that the people, that the saints, rightly called saints, they were weaving together the different faiths. They were opposing the ideas that were established by the Vedas, or the idea, some of the ideas about life and death that was established by Buddhism and Jainism, and new philosophical ideas are coming up. Today we are going to study a very humanitarian aspect of Bhakti and Sufi tradition. Very humanitarian means in favor of humanity, serving humanity, serving them with food, serving them with a type of worship which is free from rituals, which is free from dogmas, and which will ultimately lead them to attain salvation, and by doing good deeds. So we learn all these things through the texts, through the buildings of that time. A number of buildings have been given. You can see NCERT pages 151, 152, 153, 154 and 155, which we are discussing today. So we start with the faiths of the rulers and the subjects, and we come through a name, Muhammad Qasim. Who was he? 1 mark question. He was an Arab general. He conquered Sindh, and then he established the Delhi Sultanate. Afghans and the Turks in the 13th century, they established the Delhi Sultanate, and the area conquered by Qasim, that came under the domain of the Caliph, about which we discussed yesterday that these caliphs were materialistic, and they were giving lots of importance to the materialistic things, although they were supposed to be spiritual heads, but they were also acting as a political head, and they were also materialistic. So they were opposed by many of the saints of this time. However, in the 16th century, Mughal Empire was established in India. The foundations of the Mughal Empire were laid down Babur, and they were consolidated by Akbar later on. And they acted according to the words of the ulemas. They were the Muslim scholars, the scholars of Islam. So acted according to ulemas and according to the Sharia. Sharia, I told you yesterday also, it is a law conducting the Muslim community, conducted their conducts, conducted their day-to-day activities, that is Sharia. So they acted according to it. Actually, they were, at that time, they were non-Muslims also in India. So many non-Muslims were there. There were different communities, there were different types of caste, there were Hindus, there were Zoroastrians, there were Jewish people, there were Christians, there were Persians, and there were so many other castes. They were the main, which I told you. Zoroastrianism was there. So different type of people, and they could not subscribe to Islam. Although I told you that Islam stressed upon so many ideals which were very close to the other religions that were prevailing in India, and they also laid stress on the concept of one God, that is Allah. But many of these communities, they could not subscribe to Islam. What is to be done for them? Actually, there were certain Mughal emperors like Akbar, and the name of Aurangzeb is also there. They considered that they are not only the rulers of the Muslims, but they are the rulers of the people. That means they are people's rulers. Correct? And they used the term Zimmi. This is your 1 mark question. Zimmi. These people who were non-Muslims, they were declared or they were considered as Zimmi. And that you can understand with the word protected. Zimmi, zimmedari, zimma, protected. That although there is Islam spreading in the country far and wide from 13th century, 16th century onwards up to 18th century, but these are the Zimmi, the communities which I told you, and they would be protected by the rulers because we are the rulers of the people, not the Muslims only. And they were to be paid a tax called jizya. 1 mark question. They were to be paid a tax called jizya, and that was the tax against which the Mughal rulers or the Muslim rulers, they will protect the non-Muslim communities, about which I told you just now. All the non-Muslim communities, they will be protected in return of the tax called jizya. Later on it was converted into a different type of tax. So Zimmi and jizya, 2 new terms for you, and you can write it down, and this is your 1 mark question also. Then you know what they did? They also gave the land grants. Actually, among these communities, there were Ismailis, there were Khojis. These were the terms given to them. There were 2 categories of the Muslims also, Shias and Sunnis. So these were the communities who learned Quran. They learned the verses of Quran, as I told you, in the form of poems, in the form of verses. They learned Quran, but as well as they also learned the indigenous means locally prevailing culture, locally prevailing languages and the cultures. So they also learned the indigenous culture, they also learned the indigenous happening, indigenous activities. So they were just mingled up with the Indian society. They sung devotional poems. Many of the devotional poems were written in different languages. A new language also came up this time. You must have read in your NCERT Hindavi. Hindavi was the language of the common people, mixture of Hindi, Persian, because Mughal Empire was going on, Muslim rulers were there. So some words of Persian, some words of Urdu. Persian, what is Persian? This is a new language that was brought in India, and with a mixture of Hindi and Persian, Urdu developed. So this mixture of the languages was called Hindavi, and this was the common language of the common people. So they also wrote devotional songs, devotional poems in Punjabi, in Multani, in Sindhi language, in Hindi language, and even in Gujarati language. And students, you will be surprised to know that the Arab settlers who settled near the Malabar coast, near Kerala, Cochin, Malabar coast, your map work also, keep a map of India with you and locate whatever states or whatever regions I am telling you, Malabar coast. So, which is the popular language in Kerala? That is Malayalam. So, these Arab settlers, they also learnt Malayalam language. So, these cults, mixture, the weaving of fabrics, the mixture of the cultures that came up. And this was the time when these mixed up cultures, they were giving the rise of new culture, the rise of a new setup, a new philosophical ideas, new philosophical cultural setup in India. We quickly switch over to the next topic for today, 6th topic of your NCERT, that is Khankas and the Silsilas. Khankas. Khankas you can consider as hospices. Hospices, you must have come through in your English syllabus, hospices. The word is derived from hospitality. Hospitality. Hospices, Khankas. They were set up in different parts, and these Khankas, they were set up particularly to propagate Sufism, to propagate and to make people follow the poems, the rhymes, the hymns, and the devotional songs in the worship of God. And people used to live over there, and there were certain rules for them. For example, the members of the Khankas, they had to clean off their beard and they have to wear patched dresses. So everybody could know that these are the people who belong to the Khankas. So they were the hospices, and they were the places where people could go. They could get food, they could get everything, whatever they wanted to rest, even for the traders, even for the merchants, because at that time many means of communication and many means of transportation, many means of facilities on the way like today we have, they were not there. So Khankas came up, and each Khanka was looked after by a sheikh, that was also known as the teacher, sheikh, 1 mark question. And the sheikh, he had a number of disciples that will call the murid. The sheikh is the murshid and the murids, the disciples. 1 mark question again. So many 1 mark questions are there in this paragraph. So whoever came to the Khankas, they got everything whatever they wanted. Food, everything, clothes, a place to live in, to sleep, to rest, etc. Each sheikh was required, because we have the topic Khankas and silsila. What is silsila? It is a chain. That is a lineage. Said that in the lifetime only, a sheikh was supposed to declare his successor. Successor, you know, the chain of the sheikhs. That after me, after my death, the particular son or whom he declared as his next successor would be the silsila. That would be the lineage, the chain of the lineage of the sheikhs. So that also continued in it, and that resembles with the hospices. I told you, hospitality was shown to the people. And here another system called ziyarat also began. Again your 1 mark question, ziyarat. I have given you the pages of NCERT right from 151 for onwards to 157. You can see all the pages. The heading is given ziyarat. What is ziyarat? It is pilgrimage. So at that time, whoever saints, like you have come through so many times with the name of Nizamuddin, with the name of Chishti, the Dargah, the tomb of Chishti have been made in Ajmer. So all these saints were there, and they were very popular among the people, they were very popular among their disciples. So a place where they lived and where they performed through the qawwalis, through the devotional songs, whatever they performed over there, the place became very popular for them. So a tomb was made over there, rightly called the Dargah, and they became the centers of pilgrimages, that is ziyarat, for the people. And visiting these places that came to be a part of life, that was to seek blessings of these saints, the Sufi saints. During the Sultanate period, a very popular leader, a very popular ruler, not leader, ruler of Delhi Sultanate, that was Muhammad bin Tughlaq, and another Ghiyasuddin Tughlaq after him. They went to these dargahas very frequently, very often, to seek blessings of the saints, to seek blessings for winning the war, to be victorious in the battles, seeking blessings for the welfare of the society, for their own welfare, or even that a son should be born in the family. For that blessing also, they used to go over there. Rajasthan, Ajmer is very famous for all these things. So people go to these dargahas, people go to this tomb, and they worship over there. So this was a very interesting part of Sufism, the place, the Khankas, where people could sit very comfortably, they could sing, they could have community gathering over there, that is called the Sangat. They could discuss the different types of philosophical ideas. They could compose their poems, and they could also compose their ragas, the form of singing, the form of devotion towards the God. And they considered that the God is one, and I told you that they believed in the Nirgun Bhakti, and also told the people about this type of bhakti at that time. So this was going on, and actually the terms that were given to the different people who came from different regions of the world, that is people who came from Persia, they were given the term of Parashika. Parashika. People came from Turkish region, they were given the name of Turashika. And people who came from Tajikistan, they were given the term of Tazuka. So, in yesterday's lecture also I told you Hindu-Muslim terms up to 18th century, they were not used very commonly as we use them today. People were mostly, they were called by their names or they were related to the terms not by the religion or not by any other community, but by the region from where they came. And they followed the lineage, the genealogy of Prophet Muhammad, because they all acted according to the teachings, according to the preachings of Prophet Muhammad. So this genealogy was there. There were Arabs, there were different types of people, and who were connected with this blend of culture in India that was going on in the form of Sufism. Then we come to the movements outside the Khankas, because in Khankas whatever was going on, I told you that all the time there was langar, all the time there was interdining. Langar, you know, interdining, all the time people are provided with food and with other comforts of life. Outside Khankas also there was a life. Outside Khankas there were Kalandars, there were Madaris, there were different these type of groups outside Khankas. They did not believe in other these rules, the law of the community like Sharia, etc. But they had their own ways of propagating the message of Prophet to the people. So even outside Khankas, there were so many activities that were getting performed by the people, and people were following all these things. So there were two types of groups that came up in India, that is Sharia and Ba-Sharia. Ba-Sharia and Be-Sharia means people who believed in the community law of Muslims, the Islamic culture, the community law of the Muslim, for the Muslim community, they were called the Ba-Sharia, and those who did not, they were called the Be-Sharia. So these are the terms, the one mark term that you get very frequently in your board examination. So you have to learn all these things. Then devotion towards God, like it was going on in India in the previous faiths also. Here in Sufism, by the Sufi saints, another group was the group of the Awliyas. And they attained the title of Awliya, Nizamuddin Awliya. Another term came up, that was the term of Wali. W-A-L-I, very common term that was used. And Wali was the term that a person who is totally dedicated to the devotion of the God, who has sacrificed himself and has been mingled up with the God, was called as Wali, and they had a very important position in Sufism. They had a very important position in this area, Wali. Correct? Then there were certain groups of people who not only remained in particular tombs or particular structures that were made by the, even kings gave patronage to them. And even I told you, they got donations from the rich people, they got donations from the kings, and got donations from the other sections of the society. So there were certain people who did not stay here, but they gathered place to place, they gathered villages to villages, and propagating the ideas of Sufism among the people, so that the working sphere, that the influential sphere may be enlarged. Apart from all these, another term that we have learned in the previous chapter also, the term of Malech. Here in this period, when we are talking about the Sultanate and the Mughal period, the term Malech was used for those people who were migrants. People who migrated from the different areas, were migrated to India, and they were settled in different parts of the country. They were termed as Malech. And this term was given to them just to identify that these do not belong originally to our country and they have come from outside. So these groups, there were people, like I told you, there were Malangs, there were Madaris, etc. They followed celibacy. Inside the Khankas, there was a very good relationship between the sheikh, between the master and his disciples. A very good relation, a very good genealogy between them, a very good lineage between them. However, at the place I told you where tomb was constructed or the dargah was constructed, where the sheikh died, these places became the center of pilgrimage for the people, and people went over there to worship. It is said that Akbar went 14 times to the dargah at Ajmer, sometimes 2 to 3 times in a year, and he went over there very frequently for the fulfillment of his woes, to get a son or to win a battle 14 times. And after that he also donated a very big cauldron, that is called Deg, a very big cauldron to them, to the dargah, that langar should be prepared in that. So all these traditions were going on. Then the death anniversary of the sheikhs was also celebrated, and that was named as Urs. You must have gone through this term very often, Urs, annual. This death anniversary of the sheikhs, that was celebrated, and people used to go to the dargahas, to the tombs, and they used to worship over there, seeking the blessings. Why? Because it was considered that when a sheikh died, his soul was mingled up with the soul of with the God. The soul of that particular person is mingled up with the God. So the sheikh becomes a godly person. So that was worshipped. So these traditions went on in India during Sufism. In the next lecture, we will discuss about the different Sufi saints, about their lives, about the Bhakti saints, about their lives, that how the social system at that time was changed. And a very peculiar feature of all these traditions was that there was royal patronage. As I told you about the Tughlaqs, as I told you about Akbar and Aurangzeb, so royal patronage was there. I told you even the land grants was given to them. And the Khankas and the places where dargahas were made, they accepted these grants in both the forms. Both the forms means in the form of cash or in the form of kind. Cash is money and kind is something to be given to them, which will help them for the construction of certain objects, for the construction of certain buildings or certain places. So all these traditions, they continued in India, and actually this was the time when there was blend of cultures, and people could see it, people could feel it, and this was an attraction for the foreigners to learn that what exactly Sufism and Bhakti tradition, what does it mean, and it came in their daily life, it came in their faiths, and the previous notions that stressed upon costly rituals, that stressed upon the dogmas, the superficial powers and the blind faiths, etc., that was washed away. And actually they were they were limited to certain groups, certain communities in the remote areas only, but to many places, and particularly the particular states at that time, the northern and the Deccan, these traditions became very, very popular, and people had a sigh of relief because it was very simple, it was very common, and particularly, as I told you, that the language that was used by these people who propagated these traditions, it was very common language, a very simple language of the people, not complicated languages like Sanskrit, like a typical Sanskrit or standardized Sanskrit language that was used by the priestly class previously. This was not there at this time. Simple languages, simple text, devotion also in the form of songs, in the form of poems, in the form of writings, in the form of verses and songs. they are very popular among the people, and it is very easy for the people to remember and to learn, to grasp songs, verses, because they are very common and they are very interesting also. So this tradition continued. We will discuss about different people, different saints actually who were involved in this tradition. We will learn about Kabir, that how there was a weaving of faith by Kabir, and what were the writings of Kabir. Although he was not so much learned about all the previous scriptures of the priestly class or of the Hindus, but even then he did a lot in the society, propagating Hindus as well as Muslims, that instead of going for the blind faiths, instead of going for the showing off about their religious ceremonies, about their rituals, instead adopting a very simple way to attain salvation and a very simple way to be mingled up with the God and to attain salvation. That was the main objective of both the traditions in India. So we will meet again tomorrow. Till then, you can prepare your notes up to the page 157. We will meet again with a new energy and with new enthusiasm, with some new topics for you. Until then, it is a very goodbye.